As you settle into the quiet of this moment, let your mind drift to a dimly lit parlor in the 1800s, where the air carries the scent of beeswax candles, damp wool, and the faint tang of laudanum lingering on a bedside table. The 19th century was a time of gas lamps, horse-drawn carriages, and a creeping dread that gripped Europe and America, the fear of being buried alive. This is not a tale of grand events or famous figures, but of ordinary people, shopkeepers, seamstresses, and physicians whose lives were touched by the quiet terror of waking in a coffin. There's no hurry here, no need to cling to every detail. Let the distant creak of a wooden floor, the flicker of a candle, and the soft rustle of mourning clothes lull you, like the gentle ticking of a parlor clock. Close your eyes if you wish, and let this journey into the forgotten fear of premature burial carry you toward rest. Tonight we'll explore 10 facets of this world, each a window into the anxieties, practices, and quiet resilience of those who lived with this fear. From the medical uncertainties of the time to the inventions designed to prevent a horrific fate, we'll move slowly, savoring the textures and sounds of a century both modern and haunted. The air is heavy with the scent of lavender and the murmur of whispered prayers, the streets alive with the clatter of carts and the toll of church bells. Life was fragile disease, misdiagnosis, and death loomed large, but there were also moments of hope, ingenuity, and community. Let's begin by stepping into a 19th century home, where the fear of being buried alive shaped daily life, wrapped in the rhythm of a world both advancing and afraid. Imagine standing in a small, drafty bedroom in London or Philadelphia in 1850, where the air is thick with the scent of camphor, candle wax, and the faint must of damp plaster. You're an ordinary person, a clerk balancing ledgers, a seamstress stitching mourning dresses, or a physician tending a fevered patient living in an age where death is familiar. Yet the fear of being mistaken for dead haunts every illness. The streets outside hum with the clop of hooves and the cry of vendors, but inside, the air is tense with the weight of uncertainty. Life here is a delicate balance, marked by the rituals of sickness and mourning, and the dread of waking in a sealed coffin. Let's wander through a day in this world, letting the rhythm of the era, the tick of a clock, the rustle of black crepe, the scent of herbs settle over you like a heavy quilt, guiding you toward calm. Your day begins with the dawn's weak light filtering through muslin curtains, the air chilly as you rise from a straw mattress. You dress in wool or cotton, the fabric stiff and patched, the air sharp with the cold of an unheated room. Breakfast is simple, porridge or bread with tea, its steam rising in the air, the faint bitterness of leaves mixing with the smell of wood smoke from a small fire. The fear of premature burial lingers in the back of your mind, sparked by stories in the newspaper. A woman revived on the undertaker's table, a man's coffin found scratched inside. The air carries the weight of these tales, whispered over tea or in church pews. Work is shaped by this fear. As a seamstress, you stitch mourning clothes, your needle pricking calloused fingers, the air filled with the rustle of black crepe and the scent of dye. Every dress is a reminder of death's nearness, the air heavy with the grief of clients who fear a loved one's fate. As a clerk, you overhear tales of miraculous revivals in the shop, the air tense with customers' hushed voices. Physicians face the greatest burden, tasked with declaring death, their stethoscopes cold against fevered skin, the air thick with the smell of laudanum and the fear of a wrong call. The tools of medicine, mirrors to check breath, feathers to test for air, are unreliable, the air heavy with doubt and the ticking of a pocket watch. Death is ever present, its rituals woven into life. Families keep vigil over the sick, watching for signs of life, the air filled with the scent of vinegar-soaked cloths and whispered prayers. Bodies are laid out in parlors, mirrors draped in black, the air heavy with the smell of flowers and wax. The fear of premature burial adds urgency. Corpses are watched for days, the air tense with the hope of movement or breath. Cemeteries are grim, their earth damp and cold, the air carrying the toll of bells and the faint stench of decay. Burial is quick, often within days, to avoid disease, yet the rush heightens fears. The air thick with stories of coffins opened to reveal claw marks. Illness is a constant threat, with cholera, tuberculosis, or fever striking swiftly. Symptoms like fainting or catalepsy mimic death, the air filled with the dread of a misdiagnosis. Hospitals are few, and most die at home, the air heavy with the scent of herbs and the moans of the sick. Doctors, limited by science, rely on pulse or breath, but trance-like states confuse them, the air tense with uncertainty. Families use folk remedies, smelling salts, burning feathers, their acrid smell mingling with candle wax, a desperate bid to rouse the dead. The community is a lifeline, neighbors sharing tales or remedies, the air warm with the murmur of voices over tea. Church services offer solace, the air thick with incense and the drone of hymns. Prayers seeking protection from a buried fate. Rules govern mourning, black attire, closed shops on funeral days, the air heavy with the weight of custom. Yet the fear persists, a quiet undercurrent, the air filled with the creak of floorboards and the ticking of clocks, counting down to an uncertain end. As the day fades, you collapse into bed, the air quiet save for the wind's sigh, your mind heavy with the day's anxieties. As this world of dread settles, let's shift to the life of one person whose story reflects the fear that gripped this era. Let your thoughts drift to a cramped attic room in London in 1850, where the air is warm with the scent of candle wax, the faint tang of ink, and the rustle of black crepe. Here we meet Eliza, a seamstress of 25, whose life is a quiet thread in the fabric of the 19th century. Imagine standing beside her, the flicker of a tallow candle casting shadows on the walls, the weight of a needle in her hands, the soft hum of her voice whispering a hymn. Eliza's story is one of quiet endurance, shaped by the fear of premature burial that haunted her world, her labor stitching the mourning clothes that marked its losses. Let's follow her journey, letting the rhythm of her days, the clack of scissors, the scent of lavender, the murmur of prayers, lull you like a gentle breeze, guiding you toward rest. Eliza was born in 1825 in a working-class district of London to a cobbler and a laundress. Her father mended shoes by lamplight, the air thick with leather and wax, while her mother scrubbed linens, the air damp with soap and steam. Life was modest, tied to the city's rhythms, but at 14, Eliza was apprenticed to a dressmaker, her wages pennies a day vital to her family. Her first day was overwhelming. The shop's air was heavy with the smell of dye and the clatter of sewing as she learned to stitch mourning dresses, each one a reminder of death's shadow. The fear of being buried alive was common, whispered in the shop, the air tense with tales of coffins opened too late. Eliza's work was stitching mourning attire, her hands pricked by needles, the air filled with the rustle of black crepe and the scent of coal smoke from the stove. She rose at dawn, dressing in a patched wool dress, the air chilly in the attic she shared with other seamstresses. Her day began with cutting fabric or sewing seams, her eyes straining in candlelight, the air heavy with the effort of precision. Customers, grieving or anxious, shared stories of revived corpses, their voices low, the air thick with fear. Eliza's own dread grew after a neighbor's daughter, thought dead, stirred during her wake, the air tense with the memory of that moment. At 20, Eliza married Thomas, a printer's assistant who set type for newspapers, the air sharp with ink and paper. Their wedding was simple, held in a small church, the air scented with wax and wildflowers, followed by a meal of bread, cheese, and ale with neighbors. They lived in a rented room, its walls peeling, the air damp with the smell of mildew and coal. Their daughter, Mary, was born a year later, her cries filling the room, the air warm with the scent of milk and wool. Eliza's wages bought bread, tea, and occasional mutton, the air heavy with the effort of stretching every penny. Hardship was constant. The winter of 1845 brought cholera, the air thick with the smell of burning tar and fear of contagion. Eliza nursed Mary through a fever, her hands trembling with vinegar-soaked cloths, the air heavy with the scent of herbs and dread of a false death. Hunger followed poor harvests, when bread prices soared and meals shrank to porridge, the air tense with the rumble of empty stomachs. Work never ceased. Even in illness, Eliza stitched, the air filled with the clack of her needle and the weight of worry. The fear of premature burial lingered, her sleep broken by nightmares of a sealed coffin, the air thick with her whispered prayers. There were moments of light. Eliza found solace with other seamstresses, their laughter shared over a shared loaf in the shop, the air warm with the smell of tea and camaraderie. Church on Sundays brought hymns and community, the air rich with incense and the drone of prayers. At home she sang to Mary, her voice soft in the candlelight, the air scented with milk and wool. These moments were fleeting, sparks in a life of toil, but they sustained her, the air filled with the warmth of connection. By her 30s, Eliza's hands were scarred, her eyes weak from years of sewing. She died in 1860, likely from tuberculosis, her life unrecorded but vital to her family's survival. As Eliza's story fades, let's shift to the traces of this fear, uncovered by those who seek its past. Imagine standing in a restored 19th century cemetery, its headstones weathered, where historians and archaeologists uncover the traces of a society gripped by fear. The year is now, but your mind lingers in 1850, where the air was thick with candle wax, lavender, and the quiet dread of being buried alive. Ordinary people like Eliza left few records, their anxieties preserved in the objects they used: a coffin bell, a scratched lid, a medical pamphlet. Archaeology and historical records are a window into their world, revealing the culture, mysteries, and responses to this pervasive fear. Let's explore these traces, letting their stories settle like dust in a quiet parlor, their whispers guiding you toward rest. Cemeteries and undertakers' shops tell a story of caution. Excavations uncover safety coffins with breathing tubes or bells, their ropes frayed, the air once tense with the hope of rescue. Coffin lids, some scratched or splintered, suggest desperate awakenings, the air heavy with the echo of panic. A rusted stethoscope or a broken mirror used to test for breath speaks of medical uncertainty, the air once filled with the scent of camphor and the ticking of a watch. Burial vaults found in wealthier plots had escape hatches, their hinges stiff, the air cool with the weight of precaution. These finds are fragile, their survival a testament to the era's fear, the air heavy with the past. The culture was one of vigilance, shaped by death's proximity and medical limits. Families held wakes, watching bodies for days, the air thick with the smell of flowers and wax. Church rituals were central. Mourners prayed in pews, the air heavy with incense and the drone of hymns seeking divine protection. Funerals were somber, with black-clad processions, the air filled with the toll of bells and the rustle of crepe. The fear of premature burial permeated these rituals. Bodies were kept at home, mirrors covered, the air tense with the hope of a sign of life. Newspapers fueled the fear, printing tales of revivals, the air sharp with the rustle of pages and whispered gossip. Archaeology reveals the daily grind of this fear. Medical kits found in physicians' homes contained feathers or smelling salts, their acrid scent lingering in the air, used to rouse the dead. Pamphlets on signs of death were common, their ink faded, the air heavy with the weight of their warnings. In poorer homes, a chipped cup or a worn cloth used for nursing hints at desperate care, the air filled with the scent of vinegar and worry. In wealthier homes, safety devices like coffin alarms were installed, their wires tangled, the air tense with the hope of their use. Mysteries linger in these finds. Why were some coffins fitted with bells but never used, their ropes intact? A diary found in a parlor describes a woman's fear of catalepsy, its pages crumpled, the air thick with her anxiety. Mass graves from cholera epidemics uncovered in cities show hasty burials, the air heavy with the memory of rushed funerals and unchecked fears. Women's lives, like Eliza's, are elusive, their fears preserved in sewing kits or prayer books, the air filled with the echo of their quiet dread. Why some graves held mirrors or knives, perhaps to aid escape, remains a puzzle, the air tense with the possibility of tragedy. The community was a shield, neighbors sharing tales or remedies, the air warm with the murmur of voices in a tavern or church. Societies like the London Association for the Prevention of Premature Burial emerged, their pamphlets a call to action, the air filled with the rustle of paper and reformist zeal. These traces, uncovered by careful hands, weave a picture of a society haunted yet resilient, the air heavy with the scent of fear and survival. As we leave this world of artifacts, let's shift to the lives of the elite, whose responses to this fear contrasted with those of ordinary people. Picture yourself in a grand drawing room, its walls papered in silk, the air warm with the scent of beeswax, rosewater, and the faint clink of crystal glasses. The year is 1850, and this is the world of the elite wealthy merchants, aristocrats, and physicians whose lives of privilege contrasted with those of seamstresses like Eliza. Cities like London or Boston hum with the clatter of carriages, but the fear of premature burial spared no one, rich or poor. Let's explore their world, letting the rhythm of their days, the flicker of chandeliers, the rustle of silk settle over you like a velvet curtain, guiding you toward calm. The elite lived in comfort, their homes warmed by coal fires, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and flowers. They rose late, dressed by maids in silk or fine wool, the air soft with the rustle of fabric and the scent of lavender. Breakfast was lavish, eggs, ham, and tea served on porcelain, the air fragrant with butter and the clink of silver. Their day was spent in parlors or offices, managing estates or reading medical journals, the air filled with the scratch of pens and the murmur of servants. Women like Lady Margaret embroidered or hosted teas, their laughter echoing, while men debated politics or science, the air warm with cigar smoke and brandy. The fear of premature burial shaped their lives too. Wealth allowed precautions, private physicians with stethoscopes, safety coffins with bells or tubes, the air tense with the hope of their use. They read treatises on catalepsy, their libraries stocked with leather-bound books, the air heavy with ink and wax. Their children were tutored in Latin or music, the air filled with the twang of a pianoforte, but even they heard tales of coffins scratched from within, the air thick with whispered fears. Funerals were grand, with velvet-draped hearses, the air heavy with lily and the toll of bells, yet the elite delayed burial, watching bodies for days, the air tense with vigilance. The contrast with Eliza's life is stark. Where Eliza slept in a cold attic, the elite rested on feather beds, the air warm with furs and firelight. Where Eliza ate porridge, they dined on pheasant, the air rich with sauces and wine. Yet both faced the same fear. Eliza from necessity, the elite from knowledge. A misdiagnosis could trap anyone in a coffin, the air heavy with the dread of a sealed lid. Disease spared no one. Cholera or tuberculosis struck the wealthy too, the air thick with the scent of herbs and fear. Their wealth bought doctors, but medicine was uncertain, the air tense with the limits of science. Ordinary people sustained this elite world, their labor invisible. Seamstresses like Eliza stitched their gowns, the air filled with the clack of needles and the scent of dye. Servants polished silver or tended fires, their hands calloused, the air heavy with coal dust and effort. Undertakers crafted safety coffins, their workshops filled with the smell of sawdust and varnish, the air tense with the weight of their task. Their meals were simple bread, broth, a bit of cheese eaten in cramped kitchens, the air smoky from the fire. These workers were the era's pulse, their toil enabling its comforts, the air filled with the rhythm of their tasks. The elite's world was one of privilege but also anxiety. Their wealth could not erase the fear of premature burial, their lives governed by the same medical uncertainties, the air thick with the weight of mortality. As we leave this world of silk and silver, let's shift to the tools and technologies that shaped this fear, the inventions designed to prevent a horrific fate. Imagine standing in a dimly lit undertaker's shop, the year 1850, where the air is thick with the scent of sawdust, varnish, and the faint metallic tang of coffin fittings. The 19th century was an age of invention, driven by the fear of being buried alive, and its tools, stethoscopes, safety coffins, smelling salts, were crafted to ease this dread. For people like Eliza, these technologies were often out of reach, but they shaped the era's response to death. Let's explore this world of craft, letting the rhythm of clinking tools, ticking clocks, and the steady drip of wax settle over you like the hum of a quiet workshop, guiding you toward rest. Medicine was the first line of defense, its tools limited but critical. Stethoscopes, wooden or brass, were used to listen for heartbeats, their cold rims pressed against pale skin, the air heavy with the ticking of a watch counting seconds. Mirrors or feathers tested breath, their surfaces fogging or fluttering, the air tense with hope. Smelling salts, stored in glass vials, released an acrid ammonia scent, the air sharp as families tried to rouse the dead. Lancets drew blood to check for clotting, the air filled with the metallic smell and the faint gasp of onlookers. These tools were the physician's arsenal, their use a dance of doubt and effort, the air heavy with uncertainty. Safety coffins were a hallmark of the era, designed for escape. Some had bells attached by ropes, their brass glinting, the air tense with the hope of a ring from the grave. Others had breathing tubes or glass panels, their fittings rusted, the air cool with the weight of precaution. Wealthy families ordered these, crafted by undertakers, the air filled with the rasp of saws and the smell of varnish. Poorer families relied on simpler measures, keeping bodies at home, the air heavy with flowers and wax, or tying strings to fingers, the air tense with the hope of movement. Undertaking was a skilled trade, its tools precise. Coffins were made of oak or pine, their surfaces polished, the air thick with sawdust and the clank of hammers. Embalming, newly emerging, used arsenic or alcohol, the air sharp with their chemical sting, delaying decay to allow longer wakes. Grave diggers used iron shovels, their blades warm, the air damp with earth and the thud of digging. These tools maintained the rituals of death, but their use was grueling, the air heavy with the scent of labor and fear. Medical knowledge was limited and errors were common. Catalepsy or trance-like states confused doctors, the air tense with misdiagnosed deaths. Hospitals used thermometers or early resuscitators, their bellows wheezing, the air filled with the smell of leather and effort. Water, often contaminated, was boiled for safety, the air damp with steam and the scent of herbs. These tools brought risks. A faulty stethoscope could miss a pulse, a bell could fail, the air filling with the dread of a mistake. Maintenance was constant, sharpening lancets, cleaning tubes, polishing mirrors, and a broken tool could deepen fears, the air tense with a physician's worry. Yet these tools were the era's hope, each one a testament to the fight against a buried fate, the air heavy with the scent of effort and survival. As we leave this world of craft, let's shift to the customs and traditions that gave meaning to these fears, binding people to their community and faith. Picture yourself seated in a candle-lit parlor, the year 1850, where the air is warm with the scent of beeswax, the faint tang of lavender, and the soft murmur of voices in mourning. For people like Eliza, life was shaped by customs and traditions, rituals that marked death, soothed grief, and guarded against premature burial. These practices were a lifeline, offering order in a world of uncertainty. Imagine the flicker of a candle, the rustle of black crepe, and the drone of a prayer, their rhythm soothing like a familiar hymn. Let's wander through these rituals, letting their cadence wrap around you, guiding you toward rest. The church was central, its rituals anchoring the cycle of life and death. Sundays meant services, families kneeling in pews, the air heavy with incense, and the drone of hymns praying for protection. Eliza whispered prayers for health or mercy, her voice blending with the congregation, the air thick with devotion and the fear of a coffin's confinement. Funerals were elaborate, with black-clad mourners, the air filled with the toll of bells and the scent of lily. Wakes were universal, bodies laid out for days, the air tense with the watch for breath or movement, mirrors draped to avoid trapping souls. Mourning customs were strict, especially for women. Widows like Eliza's clients wore black crepe for a year, their dresses heavy, the air filled with the rustle of fabric, and the scent of dye. Men wore black armbands, their hats creased, the air heavy with the weight of decorum. Families burned herbs or sprinkled salt to ward off spirits, the air sharp with their acrid smell. The fear of premature burial shaped these rituals. Bodies were kept at home, fingers tied with string, the air tense with the hope of revival. Clocks were stopped at the time of death, the air quiet save for the toll of bells. Daily rituals reflected the fear. Families checked pulses obsessively, the air filled with the ticking of watches and the scent of camphor. Smelling salts or vinegar-soaked cloths were kept by bedsides, their sharp smell a constant reminder, the air heavy with worry. Superstitions guided actions. A mirror held to the mouth, a feather under the nose, the air tense with whispered tales of revived corpses. Eliza clutched a small cross, its weight a comfort, the air thick with prayers against a buried fate. These beliefs were a shield, a way to navigate a world of medical uncertainty, the air heavy with their quiet power. Storytelling was cherished, done by candlelight in parlors or taverns. Tales of premature burials, real or imagined, filled the air, their cadence chilling as Eliza listened, her hands resting from sewing. The air carried the scent of wax and tea, the stories of bond between neighbors, sparking fear or resolve. Newspapers printed sensational accounts, their ink sharp, the air filled with the rustle of pages. The community was a refuge, its rituals weaving people together despite their dread, the air warm with the rhythm of shared lives. As we leave this world of tradition, let's shift to the food and sustenance that nourish these people, sustaining them through their anxious days. Imagine sitting at a worn wooden table in a modest kitchen, the year 1850, where the air is warm with the starchy scent of boiling potatoes, the faint smoke curling upward, mingling with the earthy smell of bread. Food was the cornerstone of life, a necessity that demanded thrift and care. For people like Eliza, meals were simple, shaped by the city's markets and the family's means, yet they were a source of comfort, a pause in a life of worry. Picture the flicker of a fire, the clink of tin spoons, and the soft murmur of a family sharing a meal, their warmth wrapping around you like a woolen shawl. Let's explore the tastes, textures, and smells of their table, letting these details settle gently in your mind, guiding you toward rest. Bread was the staple, its crust hard and its interior dense, baked from wheat or rye. Eliza ate it at every meal, sometimes with butter or dripping, the air warm with the faint smell of yeast and grease. The bakery's white loaves were for the wealthy, but Eliza's family ate coarser bread, its texture chewy, the air heavy with the effort of chewing. On good days, a bit of cheese or jam accompanied it, the air rich with their creamy or sweet aroma, a rare treat that softened the bread's toughness. Soup or stew was the heart of the diet, cooked in an iron pot over the fire. Eliza stirred in potatoes, cabbage, or onions, the air heavy with the earthy scent of boiling vegetables and the steam that stung her eyes. A scrap of bacon or beef might be added, but meat was scarce, the air filled with longing when the smell of roasting mutton drifted from wealthier homes. Herbs like thyme or parsley, bought or grown, added flavor, their sharp aroma cutting through the stew's blandness. Eliza's portion was served in a tin bowl, the air warm with the comfort of a hot meal, however simple. Vegetables were a mainstay, their availability tied to the market. Carrots, turnips, and leeks were cheap, their earthy taste a contrast to the monotony of bread. Onions or garlic added sharpness, their scent lingering in the air as Eliza chopped them on a worn board. Fruit was a treat, apples or plums from street vendors, its sweetness rare in a diet without sugar. The air carried the juicy aroma of a bitten apple, a fleeting delight for Eliza's family. Sugar or honey was costly, reserved for the elite, so fruit was the closest they came to sweetness, the air soft with its scent. Meat was a luxury, often just a scrap of pork or mutton. The wealthy dined on beef or game, the air rich with their aroma, while Eliza's family ate broth or offal, its taste strong, the air filled with the smell of boiling bones. Fish was common in coastal cities, its briny taste sharp, the air heavy with the smell of barrels, unpacked in the market. A roasted chicken shared on Sundays was a feast, its meat tough but savory, the air warm with dripping fat. Tea was the drink of choice, its bitter warmth soothing, the air filled with the clink of cups and the scent of leaves. Water, often tainted, was boiled, the air damp with steam and the faint stench of city pipes. Food preparation was women's work, Eliza chopping vegetables or stirring pots, her hands calloused, the air filled with the clatter of knives and the bubble of boiling water. Preservation was critical, vegetables pickled, meat salted, bread stored in cloth, the air a mix of vinegar, salt, and the faint sweetness of stored apples. Meals were a communal act, the family gathered around the table, their spoons clinking, the air warm with the fire's glow, and the murmur of talk gossip about the neighborhood, the day's work, or tales of premature burial. The act of eating was a pause, a moment of connection in a life of toil, the air filled with the comfort of togetherness. As we leave the table, let's shift to the challenges and dangers that shape their lives, from the perils of illness to the fear of a buried fate. Imagine walking a cobblestone street at dusk, the year 1850, where the air is cold, the stones slick with damp, and the distant toll of a church bell echoes through the fog. For people like Eliza, life was a constant negotiation with danger, disease, misdiagnosis, and the fear of premature burial were ever present, their impact felt in the quiet moments of dread and loss. Picture the flicker of a candle, the weight of a sewing needle in calloused hands, and the tense silence of a prayer for safety, their rhythm a steady pulse in a world of hardship. Let's explore these perils, letting their weight settle gently in your thoughts, like mist falling on a quiet street, guiding you toward calm. Disease was a relentless foe. Cholera, tuberculosis, and fever swept through cities, the air thick with the smell of burning tar or herbs meant to ward off illness. Eliza nursed her daughter with vinegar-soaked cloths, the air heavy with worry and the scent of camphor. Hospitals were grim, their wards crowded, the air filled with moans and the stench of decay. Water from pumps was often contaminated, its taste metallic, the air damp with the risk of every sip. Folk remedies, laudanum, willow bark offered little relief, the air sharp with their bitter smell and the fear of a worsening illness. Medical uncertainty was a constant threat. Catalepsy, fainting, or trance-like states mimicked death, the air tense with the fear of a wrong diagnosis. Physicians relied on pulse or breath, but their tools, stethoscopes, mirrors were fallible, the air heavy with doubt and the ticking of a watch. Isaiah heard tales of revived corpses, their stories whispered in the shop, the air filled with the rustle of newspapers and dread. Families kept vigil, watching for signs of life, the air thick with the scent of flowers and the hope of movement. A misdiagnosis could mean a coffin, the air tense with the horror of waking underground. Work was dangerous even for the skilled. Eliza's hands were pricked by needles, her eyes strained by candlelight, the air filled with the clack of sewing and the scent of dye. Coal fires in homes risked suffocation, the air heavy with smoke and the creak of floorboards. Women faced additional dangers. Dark streets or crowded tenements could threaten safety, the air thick with unspoken fear and the need to stay vigilant. The fear of premature burial added pressure, families delaying funerals, the air tense with the watch for breath or the hope of a bell's ring. Social rules were a peril of their own. Mourning etiquette demanded black attire and closed shops, the air heavy with the weight of decorum. Gossip about false deaths could ruin a doctor's reputation, the air sharp with whispers in the tavern. The church emphasized divine judgment, its sermons warning of death's nearness, the air thick with incense and fear. The community was a lifeline, neighbors sharing food or remedies, their voices a murmur in the parlor, the air warm with their presence. Faith offered solace, prayers whispered in church, the air heavy with candle smoke and hope. The city itself was a hazard. Narrow streets were slick with mud or waste, the air filled with the stench of sewers and the clatter of carts. Fires from candles or hearths could flare, the air filling with smoke and cries. The fear of premature burial was a constant shadow, its weight felt in every illness or funeral, the air tense with the dread of a sealed coffin. Yet resilience was the era's strength, a quiet defiance against a world that demanded so much. As we leave this world of peril, let's shift to the education and learning that offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to understand and combat this fear. Imagine sitting in a small parlor, the year 1850, where the air smells of candle wax and ink, and the faint scratch of a pen on paper traces a lesson. Education for people like Eliza was limited, shaped by necessity and class, yet it held a quiet power, a spark of understanding in a world of dread. For the elite, learning was a path to progress, while for workers, it was a skill snatched in stolen moments. Picture the glow of a candle, the weight of a book in tired hands, and the murmur of a teacher's voice, their rhythm soothing like a gentle breeze. Let's explore this world of education, letting its faint light settle in your mind, guiding you toward rest. For most, education was informal, woven into work. Eliza taught her daughter to sew, guiding her small hands to thread a needle, the air filled with the rustle of fabric and the scent of dye. Men learned trades printing, cobbling through apprenticeships, the air heavy with ink or leather and the clatter of tools. Children learned by doing, stitching, fetching water, or tending fires, their knowledge shaped by survival. The air carried the sounds of labor, the clack of needles, the splash of buckets, each task a lesson in endurance, taught without words but etched into memory. Formal education was scarce tied to charity or the church. Sunday schools taught reading and scripture, their lessons held in church basements. Imagine Eliza's daughter tracing letters on a slate, the air heavy with the scratch of chalk and the smell of wax. The curriculum was basic Bible verses, simple sums, but it offered a chance to become a clerk or governess, a step above the needle. Reading was a skill few mastered, writing rarer, reserved for those with time or a patron's favor, the air thick with the effort of learning. Women had less access. Their education, domestic Eliza learned to mend or cook, the air warm with the scent of thread or broth. The elite had private tutors, studying medicine, literature, or science in grand homes. The air was heavy with the smell of ink and parchment, the scratch of a quill marking lessons. They read medical treatises on catalepsy or death, the air filled with the rustle of pages, seeking answers to the fear of premature burial. Books were costly, their leather bindings a treasure, the air scented with wax and learning. These lessons were a world apart from Eliza's, the air thick with the weight of ambition. Knowledge was often shared orally. In the shop, Eliza listened to tales of revived corpses or medical debates, their cadence chilling as she sewed, the air warm with the scent of tea and gossip. Neighbors shared remedies, smelling salts, vinegar, their voices a murmur, the air filled with the clink of cups. Physicians taught apprentices, passing down the use of stethoscopes or lancets, the air heavy with the smell of camphor and effort. These lessons were a bond tying communities together, the air warm with tradition. Education faced challenges. Teachers were few, often clergy with limited time, the air heavy with their duties. Resources were scarce, books or slates were costly, and work pulled children away, the air filled with parents' demands. The church emphasized scripture, limiting secular learning, the air thick with hymns and prayers. Yet knowledge was a ladder, however steep. A woman who read could keep accounts, escaping the needle, the air alive with the scratch of her pen. A man who studied medicine could save lives, the air scented with his remedies. These small victories were seeds of hope, planted in the soil of a fearful age. As we leave this world of learning, let's shift to the leisure and entertainment that offered a moment of joy, a chance to rest in a life of dread. Picture yourself in a tavern at dusk, the year 1850, where the air is warm with the scent of ale, tobacco, and the sound of a fiddle drifts through the crowd. For people like Eliza, leisure was a rare escape, a moment to find joy amid labor and fear. These pastimes, music, games, and gatherings, were a celebration of community, a chance to laugh and forget the dread of a buried fate. Imagine the glow of a candle, the clatter of dice, and the soft murmur of a tale, their warmth wrapping around you like a woven blanket. Let's wander through these moments, letting their joy settle over you, guiding you toward rest. Church festivals were the heart of leisure, tied to the calendar. Christmas brought carols and feasts, with tables laden with bread, mutton, and ale, the air rich with the smell of roasted meat and the sound of hymns. Eliza joined neighbors in the churchyard, the air warm with laughter and candlelight. Easter saw processions, the air filled with the scent of flowers and the toll of bells. These moments were a release, the community's shared spirit, a balm against fear, the air alive with celebration. Music was a constant joy, even in daily work. Eliza hummed hymns as she sewed, her voice blending with the clack of needles, the air warm with the scent of fabric. In taverns, men played fiddles or accordions, their melodies lightening the evening, the air filled with the twang of strings. Instruments were simple flutes, harmonicas, their notes drifting through the air, a comfort after a long day. Dance was communal, with reels or waltzes in church halls, the air warm with the energy of the crowd and the rustle of dresses. Games were another pastime. Men played cards or dominoes in taverns, their laughter echoing, the air clicking with wooden pieces and the murmur of bets. Children tossed hoops or marbles in alleys, their giggles a bright note, the air dusty with their play. Fairs brought spectacle storytellers, puppet shows, the air rich with the smell of roasted nuts and the excitement of a crowd. Eliza might slip away to watch, her coin spent on a sweet bun, the air warm with the joy of a rare treat. Storytelling was cherished, done by candlelight in parlors or taverns. Tales of ghosts or premature burials filled the air, their cadence chilling as Eliza listened, her hands resting from sewing. The air carried the scent of wax and ale, the stories of bond between neighbors, sparking fear or laughter. Newspapers printed sensational accounts, their ink sharp, the air filled with the rustle of pages. The community was a stage with gossip about doctors or revivals shared in whispers, the air warm with intrigue. Parks or markets offered leisure too. Families walked city gardens, the air fresh with grass and flowers. Markets were entertainment, with stalls selling pies or trinkets, the air rich with the smell of spices and the chatter of vendors. These moments were fleeting, a chance to feel the sun or taste a rare apple, the air warm with the joy of a treat. The elite had grander pastimes balls, operas, but ordinary people found joy in simpler ways, the air filled with the sounds of community and the warmth of connection. As we leave this world of joy, let's shift to a final reflection, tying together the threads of these people's lives. As the sounds of the 19th century fade, the clink of teacups, the rustle of crepe, the scent of camphor and wax, let your mind rest in the quiet that follows. We've wandered through the lives of people like Eliza, from the anxious labor of sewing to the rituals that guarded against premature burial, from the weight of disease to the fleeting joys of a tavern's music. Their world was one of progress and fear, shaped by gaslight, mourning, and the ticking of clocks. Yet it was also one of resilience, where community and faith offered strength. Imagine yourself now in a soft, warm bed, the air still and the challenges of their time far away, their fears a distant echo. Their lives, though unrecorded, remind us of the endurance that carries us through, the quiet victories that define us in the face of dread. Let the details slip away, like candlelight fading in a parlor. The crowded streets, the smoky rooms, the taste of bread and bitter tea, they fade into the background, leaving only the peace of this moment. You've journeyed through a world that shaped an era, its people's small hands and steady hearts keeping its rhythm alive. Now it's time to rest, to let go of the century's bustle and sink into calm. Close your eyes, if you haven't already, and let the gentle rhythm of history lull you into sleep, safe in the stillness of now.